got the notification on my end. Can others confirm that we're
Sure.
great? Thanks. All righty. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for being here on a Wednesday morning. I'm going to use this public meeting time to acknowledge that at the last public meeting, I spoke about the financial task force. I forgot about our meeting last week, and again, adjusting with vacationing. So apologies. We did have a meeting. It was mostly check-in. Most notably, Rick was on phone, and I was like, oh yeah, that did happen. So here I am publicly shaming myself, but moving on. So I will make note and try to better report out from the council standpoint. But also these topics are now appropriately woven into everything we're talking about prior to just a check-in about these task force at the end of the meeting, I find. So yeah, and if folks, community members that are here that want to correct, I'm open to it. I'm a human, so feel free to, yeah, feedback, open to it always. So I just really quickly, I will share around the final, I meant to link them in here, and then I realized, like, I remember linking through Google Docs, there's like permission issues, but final call on any credit card policies for the city. I want to bring those forward because I know that that's impacting how they do their operations and also appropriations. So I've done some tweaking from the last time I introduced the appropriations. Oh, this is Carrie. Okay. Oh, Carrie's joining me. Okay. I didn't have to admit her. So I will be sending those around just for final comment if you would like. But that's mostly the reminder there. Yeah, and the main two meat and potatoes of what we're talking about today is kind of reviewing, talking about the audit for those that were able to take some time and start digesting it. But also before I think we get there, I was wondering if Chip, you would talk about the chart of accounts, like structure. I don't know if you want to screen share. And I also know you went through these with the department heads yesterday. So I really am curious to how that went over and what discussions came from that. And if you feel we're ready to talk and bring this chart of accounts to the council. Yeah, I'm just kind of casually just throwing the mic at you, the general.
So
if we could, I'd like to hear how before we talk about what's gone on, how it was received by the department heads. So I think that spices or flavors everything.
Yeah, they really want to simplify it even more.
Oh.
In the areas that we looked at, basically it mimicked what has already been happening with the chart of accounts. The changes that were made were to extend the number of digits to identify a fund from 1 to 2, so we could have up to 99 funds. We added the type of an account as a piece of the account number. Therefore, that allowed us to use what government section was involved, both in the revenue and in the expense, so that we could run reports for the budgetary purposes and include the revenues and expense per government group. Mm-hmm. Then all expense objects, 3,000 of them, were made uniform so that you could run a report on any expense object, and no matter what fund or department it was in, you could bring them all into one report with their budget and their actual and totals. Then with the meeting yesterday, the department heads that we had met with Carter at the fire station had indicated that they would like to see their departments broken down basically into areas which are salaries and benefits, office operations, building maintenance, street maintenance, equipment maintenance, depreciation, debt service, which would simplify greatly how they view their budget. And the most egregious one really is public works, which has 7 or 9 categories. And something as simple as diesel fuel bought for the equipment is broken down in 7 categories. And so today, budgeting for 26-27, tell me how much fuel you think will be used in summer maintenance versus winter maintenance versus Gardner Park. It seems like ludicrous that one would try to forecast that, because that only opens up questions of why in one area you spend twice the budget in fuel, and another one they never even asked why you didn't spend any.
Mhm.
So when for highway fuel is one line under equipment, then you have one total you anticipate spending on fuel for all the equipment, and it's easier to monitor and say, where are we with equipment operations? So that was pretty overwhelmingly supported to simplify everyone's budgets down. And then those, when you go into priority budgeting, which is to say what are the goals that we try to achieve, most of that is achieved through dialogue to stay within budget. And then year to year, the budget can be managed for continuity and consistency. And then if priorities end up shifting 6 months through the year, that doesn't mean we got to alter our budgets. All that means is we just shift what we're focusing on again. So that seems the next step that I have to take. So everything I sent to you is due for revision again. We're meeting tomorrow for an hour to an hour and a half with each department head individually to talk about next year's budget. But unfortunately, what they've got in front of them now is and looks very much like what it's always looked like.
Mm.
And unless I can flip all the numbers quickly today and issue them back out, they will be working on the concept of mathematics that says all of my budgets for fuel are this. I would see a budget for fuel equal this. So I think they were much more amenable to simplification and contracting the chart of accounts down. As well, the intention with it being contracted means it's more digestible for the layperson and for the city council. And it doesn't mean we can't track what's going on, because other areas that we already have access to will allow us to do that. The question was asked, how will I know on supplies what was purchased? And the same answer exists today. Do a detailed transaction report for vendors and what was bought. But instead of having 5 lines to run it for, you have 1.
I have a question, and maybe just a point of clarification so that I understand. So the first thing is, can you say again, maybe slightly differently, what you said about the department heads, what they're looking at today, because you said they've got something in front of them, but if you can flip the numbers, and I think what you said was that they're looking at the same kind of structure they've had in the past. They're not looking at the new structure. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The new chart of accounts has different numbers, but the whole process of it is still one account to one new account with a different layout, a uniform expense object, and the ability to say that there's government departments in the revenue stream, which heretofore weren't identified.
Mhm. Okay. All right. And the second point, just for those who weren't at the city council meeting Monday night, one of the questions that was asked was, is the new chart of accounts going to allow the transparency that some people want? And I really like the way that you presented that Monday night, and then again just now, especially with those pieces that are spread across, like fuel and who uses the truck for what, and it can get so cumbersome to try to budget those things that when you just have one pot of money and can spend it from that pot, like you just said, you can break it down by the invoices. You don't have to have so many lines. And I think that's that's really going to be an educational point for some people, because they're so used to two things. They're so used to being able to see it all spin out. But on the other side of that, we've all been asking the same question for years. How much do people get paid? And we could never tell. And now that's going to be cleared up. So I'm very happy to hear what's happening. So.
Yeah, and I thought I had sent out to this group the actual budget status report with the new chart of accounts, and then I gave an example of DPW revenues and expenditures across all funds for government group 50. That was just the object 10 for labor. And so that is, I think it turned out to be 8 pages for labor. And there really should have been 1 in general fund, 1 in water, and 1 in wastewater. If labor is labor, then they really just have 1 line. So that was what we were attempting to do initially with the changes that were made. And like I said, when we met at the fire station, we really talked about simplifying a department and even just general government. What I haven't gotten is a clear picture in City Hall that they actually understand what that means, that City Hall becomes a department, and that all the salaries in City Hall and all the benefits in City Hall is 1 group. And you don't see the mayor, you don't see taxation, you don't see the city manager, all as groups of accounts. But you see all their salaries and benefits in 1 defined subtotaling group. And then the operations of City Hall, meaning the copier lease or 2 copier leases and the supply closet of paper, that's all operations of City Hall. The exception to that, of course, is the police department. It is physically separate. And then building maintenance is just building maintenance. There's not a building as a department. It is part of just general government to maintain City Hall. So there is, for City Hall, there shouldn't be, I don't think, any vehicle or equipment maintenance, because I don't believe that the city affords the mayor or the city manager use of a public vehicle. So that is hugely different than what you have now spread out, I want to say, against maybe 13 breakdowns in general government. Everything else that's outside City Hall belongs to and is managed by some other department.
I have a quick question. I'm so sorry that I got here late and I missed where we are in all of this. I'm looking at the chart of accounts. Is that where we're focusing right now? So 2 things just jumped out at me. One is the methadone receivables, methadone clinic receivables, and then down further is the BART receipts. Isn't that one and the same?
So I have yet to have anybody get to that level with me. But I don't believe that those accounts may exist, but they probably haven't been used in years.
And the fish concert too, right? That should be.
Yeah. So one of the dilemmas in renumbering is you can start by eliminating all the accounts you don't need. That also means that if you eliminate them and you want to run a report of what happened in 2012, the account's gone.
Yep. Got it.
So we have to switch 100% of the accounts to something else. And you can collapse account numbers into a new account number, but you can't take an account number and break it back out. That's done by journal entry.
Okay.
So one of the things that we intentionally do is we store a copy that's still accessible of the original chart of accounts before it changed.
Okay.
And then we change everything, including all the history. And if you switch between the two, You have to actually exit the program because it stores the structure of your chart of accounts while you're working. And so there are all of Fund 1, which was the project fund. They had 17 bucks in it from 2010. And the auditors kept saying you could get rid of this 17 bucks. Well, all of that at the end of this year, 26, will go away because we finally got rid of that 17 bucks. But unfortunately, we got to carry the thing because it had 17 bucks in it. So,
Okay.
so the process, and what you might have missed was department heads we talked with yesterday. We're talking about revamping even what we just revamped to further simplify. And I think, and I don't recall if I did this, the chart of accounts sections descriptions, where I had put into a spreadsheet, and I wasn't sure if I actually had sent that off to everyone to be able to see the components that were used to build the new chart. I know I sent it to Carrie just yesterday afternoon, and that gave her a clear picture of what we were talking about in terms of government areas for the comparative budget report. And if I did include it, it may have only had just the expenditure objects and sub-objects for the salaries and benefits.
So Chip, would you say one, it was well received, and actually there was identified further distillation, or however you want to describe it, or because I think that's important. One, if it makes their jobs easier, and they're better able to forecast and discuss that, and it doesn't take away, at the end of the day, it doesn't take away the ability to dive into detail should there be questions. I think that's the overarching answer that we're, wanting to make sure this is made available. So now from year to year, we can say, instead of having to look at 7 lines and not having a good feel for what our overall fuel expenditures are, because, and why would that be important? Well, we know that we're spending $200,000 on fuel aggregated across, X number of departments. Great. Can we figure a way to leverage that much spend into a better bulk purchase discount? Yes. Something of that nature. So I think that's what we're getting at here, is that the simplification allows us to, doesn't negate the ability to get into detail. It's easier to budget. It's easier to compare and contrast, and ideally will give us some better opportunities for what I want to call opportunities of scale.
Yes.
Okay. So, because I went through it, Susie, not to your detail, I didn't pick up on the fish concert. I think my printer was a little busy screaming when I started putting this stuff out. That was the reason why I asked, because at 62 pages, that's when I was like, Mike, no.
Did you get it printed? Because I'm happy to print. Obviously, I have a big copier, so I'm happy to print as many copies for this group as needed.
Yeah, I think it might be great if when we're done discussing that, it might be good. But I printed out some of the charts of accounts that with like 5 or 6 attachments, and this was so much easier to read and understand what was going on. I like just pick certain areas to go through. So, I mean, it's not easy. Can that change be made in a day? So that because I mean, it sounds like the budgeting and forecasting process is still going to be complicated for the department heads if we don't make a rapid change. Can that change be made quickly enough? Because if we understand what's not going to go away and what can happen, is it something everybody here is comfortable with, getting some action on?
So the answer, can it be made quickly? It depends on the demands on my time. And tomorrow, I literally will be in video meetings with department heads starting at 8:30 and ending at 4:30 all day long tomorrow. And ideally, it would be great to have the revamped numbers and send them to them by the end of today. But I can tell you that this is one of the weeks that people are doing quarterly utility bills, and I am the guy. So I'll get off this meeting and get into other people's data very quickly. So that literally is a time function. It's going to be a lot easier because I now have uniform object codes, and so I can sort everything in the new chart and then number it again, because fairly intentionally, objects that are 10 to 19 have to do with salary and benefits. And then objects that are 20 to 29 have to do with office operations. And 30s are outside services, which are typically primarily to do with building, heating, electricity, telephone. So some of that is naturally built in by the objects. But then you hit those oddball things, road materials. Road materials is one object, but it can be called various different things according to what highway wants to call it. So yes, I'm hoping I can do that. And the one that stands out the most is the general fund, which I think if we do this correctly, we might be able to take the general fund total number of lines and reduce it down by a third for just the expenditures.
That's significant.
Yeah.
Effectively, you don't have to give suppressant to headers to the city council, because now you've cut it down to something that's digestible, and they can look just at the subtotal categories. And if they want detail of what makes up that subtotal, they look above it, and they can now look directly at lines, budget to actual. And right now they're getting only subtotals, and they don't see detail lines behind the subtotals except looking at a separate report, because it's 35 pages the other way. So that's other things we talked about with the department heads. The way the city was tracking the reserves in a spreadsheet, which we all know the spreadsheet never matched the financials, but the auditors were using the numbers in the spreadsheet to present the audit. And when they asked for that spreadsheet during the 25 audit, I said, we're not using that anymore. And I got no pushback. So the concept with expanding the digits in the fund number portion is so that we can introduce additional funds in which they would perform the function that spreadsheet was attempting to do. And by being within the chart of accounts, if we have a fund that we deem to be the fire equipment reserve, and a separate one for highway equipment reserve, and a separate one for street resurfacing as a reserve, then in the accounting, we actually raise money in the general fund and transfer value, not dollars and cents, but value into those reserves. And that same report that I talked about, the due to from, how much money is this general fund holding on behalf of my fund, now becomes a report that helps you identify how much you have in your reserve without physically opening another bank account and moving money between bank accounts and reconciling more bank accounts, and then finding out that the general fund's borrowed $2 million because we really had all this money moved into other bank accounts and we're writing checks to pay their bills. And all of that gets resolved through the single cash account, which you always had, but never really tracked those reserves in a meaningful way other than a spreadsheet. So that's the stage that is after and is part of, I think, next year's budget. We're also looking at, instead of parsing a salary like the manager, DPW, some of the finance staff, where you pay them and book their benefits in general fund, water fund, and sewer fund. That it is determined that their full salary and benefits appears in the general fund, and that there is an administrative service fee paid by water and sewer as expense and brought in as income to the general fund, which is a clearer picture of what's it costing for the employees and how much is water and sewer contributing. And that's backed up by some spreadsheet that says, here's the salary and benefits, here's the percentage, here's the admin cost. And that number can come over monthly, quarterly, or annually. But that strips out this extra work being done, well processing every 2 weeks the payroll to split hairs for those employees that go across funds. It'll greatly reduce the amount of time having to be spent doing that and reconciling that every month.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. Probably here is with, we have the administrative staff, the city manager's office, things of that nature. What's the reasoning behind the water department and such contributing towards their benefits? Do they have some role that in some way is overseeing that? Is there like a crossover responsibility that requires that versus it being a separate expense and there being no mixing between?
So if you had a city manager that only managed sewer, and a city manager that only managed water, and a city manager that managed general fund, then there would be 100% total segregation. But a ratepayer of water and sewer comes in to complain, and they go to the city manager's office. So at that moment, are we going to hit a button that, like an attorney? I'm going to be on my 6-minute clock, and for the next 6 minutes, it's charged to water or charged to sewer.
Okay.
Downstairs in the finance office, you have quarterly water sewer payments, and you have biannual tax payments. So in my estimation, the number of cash transactions being processed is twice as many for water and sewer as it is for taxes. We're about to rectify that, make them both be quarterly. But in terms of transactional time, tax bills typically get produced once, get mailed out, and you may have 200 revised bills. Water sewer bills have a whole process of collecting, calculating, and producing bills, and then producing revised bills based upon somebody finding out meter reading digits got switched around by dyslexia. And so you're doing revised bills, but then you do the whole thing all over again 3 months later to collect meter readings, calculate, print bills, collect money. So they spend a lot more time than what the public realizes to produce the quarterly bills for water sewer than they do tax bills.
Gotcha. Well, I wasn't thinking, honestly, I didn't think about that, so I appreciate it. It's, I didn't think about the fact that one finance office is producing billing and receivables and everything for everybody. So it now makes a lot more sense.
So the other piece of that, and excuse me, I just had a sneeze attack. That's why I went off camera. So just for historical purposes, and I think, again, we're talking about education for a public that has been indoctrinated to this way of doing things for the last, 20 years, where we know that at some point a city manager decided to take their salary or apply their salary to water and sewer to cover costs, because in our city there are less sewer customers than water customers. I am one of those. And what we discovered is all of that time, their benefits that were being paid out of those funds for things like long-term disability or short-term disability, whatever it was adding up, and that was part of the problem. That's been what I see, and I think others will agree with me, as part of the issue with spending all of that extra money in water and sewer, and especially sewer, but not charging it really where it was. So I love the idea of the administrative fee, which is just a one-to-one kind of match, right? If I'm hearing that correctly. So instead of being 12.5% of the city manager's office, the city clerk's office coming out for salaries coming out of water and sewer because they're processing those bills once a quarter, it'll now just be an administrative fee that's paid back. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. However, the mathematics may be very similar to what has already been happening. It's just the mechanics of processing every 2 weeks of payroll. We simply pay the salary against one line in general fund.
Right.
And then,
but it wouldn't include benefits. It's
the administrative service costs that would be reimbursed would include anything and everything that you want to include. Because I know that we print checks on general fund checks, and we do not charge buying checks to water and sewer. We print all kinds of reports and papers and print bills. The physical bills may be paid for by water and sewer, but all the reporting done is done on paper that's bought out of the supplies. The supply may have been purchased out of the clerk area versus the treasurer area versus the manager's area versus the mayor's area, because we have a supply line for every one of them and we have one closet.
Right.
So that is why when someone says, how does this work? The treasurer had to reconcile more bank accounts related to water and sewer than he did the general funds.
Mm-hmm.
And each bank account, some of them were easy and some of them were hard and some of them are never reconciled. So that's why the whole consolidation of where's our cash and how can we manage that in a streamlined way. When asking that question of what are those costs, I don't split the electric bill for City Hall between water and sewer for the amount of time we spend doing water and sewer. So, when someone says, what's it actually cost? I know communities who say their police department is less than $1 million. Well, that's because all of the benefits are in another group called employee benefits. And all of their insurance is in yet a different place, and that the whole building that they operate in is under some other place. And when you say, what does police cost? Well, the budget in police for you guys is somewhere $1.5 million, but it doesn't have everything in it. I know it doesn't have everything in it. So that's why the prospect of revamping the budget, and we did talk about this, the budget, in fact, for general fund for total expenditures right now is $7.5 million, and it may go to $8.5 or $9 million. And watch the place go through the roof. And did our budget really change by $1.5 million, $2 million? Burlington Free Press would say, oh my God, your budget went up 30%. Yeah, but if you don't understand the mechanics, that 30% is just a different way of allocation. Because our revenue stream of sources other than taxes also went up 30% or even 50%. So that's why, in terms of simplification, how do we read? How can we find out? When asking the question, as you had said, how much are employees paid? Are you asking by employee, or are you asking in aggregate for the services provided by Public Works? Because those are two different questions. And there are people, national, that will send a public records request to a city and say, I want a listing of all your employees and each individual's hourly rate of pay and what their total gross was last year with their title. And those come in, and somewhere out in the world, because they're public employees, there's a whole bunch of names, rates of pay and gross pay for 2024. And so it's not that it is private information, but it's really cautionary to say we're going to print in the city report everybody's name and what they got paid last fiscal year in gross. That is done in a small town like Cabot that has maybe 18 people. But if you've got 25 people in DPW, one of the conversations we had yesterday during the department head meeting was we want to make sure our wages are compatible with other people of our size in jobs that they're hired to do. The worst competition you have sits all around you. Any one of your DPW employees can go work for any town that's neighboring you simply because they're sick of putting up with the politics in the city. And they may be willing to get paid $1 less an hour to not have to deal with the crap. So the competition is really right around you to maintain and keep employees that do that type of work. In the police world, police officers move fairly rapidly every 3 to 5 years, like a city manager would. And your goal is to try to maintain them. And that's what Rick talked about yesterday in the meeting was, where are we on average? Are we below everybody, above everybody, with everybody, to try to get some equity? And that came from the fact he's already reached out to the 2 unions to begin negotiations because the contract ends June 30th of 26.
Didn't
And
we
we're trying to budget salaries for next year now. Well, do you want to predict what the union contract's going to turn out to be?
Didn't we
And then
just didn't we
split
just
that down by different work being done instead of just saying DPW.
we just had 3 police officers move to the sheriff's department, I think.
Yes.
So
So I believe if I am given a chance, that revision in how the budget is broken down, and in fact, instead of broken down, is consolidated. The question was asked by one of the department heads, well, how are we going to compare apples to oranges if our chart of accounts changes midstream? Well, when I change it, and we all agree on what the change is, it's going to historically look like it's always been that way when I'm done. So I will still be able to do 5 years comparison of all the things that got collapsed together and look at what did that look like 5 years ago.
I think that's going to be a really important thing to remind folks of as we move through this process whenever residents hear of this change. Just that reminder of we're not losing track of the records, it's just moving forward. This is how we're record keeping and keeping it transparent, but also it's not going anywhere, like you said at the top with Susie's initial question around and how you said restructuring and all that. But that's, yeah, I think that's going to be foundational in the trust component moving forward. So, okay. I am still busy digesting lots. Do others have questions around chart of accounts? And I just, again, want to say thank you to meeting with department heads and processing and hearing where they're at and how to, because that's part of it, right? Going at the end, we're talking about retaining employees, those that have the skills, those that we want to keep around. And part of that is alleviating the stress in their department to be budgeted. And so this is one tool of that. Any other folks have questions around this topic of chart of accounts, or we could bleed into Okay, before I go and switch topics.
I just have one sort of comment. Chip, you talk about what the city should be billing water and sewer for in terms of the services provided. But no one is looking at, up until now, I think, how much water and sewer should be billing the city for the services it provides. For instance, fire department uses a lot of water, rightly so, to put out fires, etc. But there's no, and water department is providing that water, but there's no bill going to the city for that water. Also in the rec department area, water is providing water for the parks and for the camping grounds. And there's no money coming back to water for providing that. And the same with sewer. So there's a number of places where things aren't being accounted for in terms of expenses and services provided going the other way.
So I haven't actually looked into that. That is an excellent question to actually ask and propose to the Water Sewer Task Force to say, are there any accounts right now, and probably the best one to answer that's going to be Stacy. Are there any accounts now which we monitor the flow of water, but we don't send them a bill? Are there any connections for water, sewer, or otherwise for which service is provided and there's no billing? And if the city itself, if City Hall has water and sewer services and there's not a bill for water and sewer services, that's really a disservice to the city.
Right.
The cost to operate is the cost to operate, and that is very common. And if the fire department has a meter, they probably should have two, one for the building and one to allow them to fill a fire truck. But if you ask the question of hydrants, which I know is a big deal, they go and they connect to a hydrant and they pump 1 million gallons to put out a house fire. And should there be a fee for that? So in communities, they are now charging what is referred to as fire protection on the water bill. It is a rate like a taxation based upon the property's value, applied to a rate quarterly, and it's a fee you pay to water to have the luxury of having that hydrant within 600 feet of your home. And it's not a general fund cost. It's a cost for fire protection for those people who are within 600 feet of a hydrant. The threshold is really driven by the insurance agency that asks one of those questions on their form, or, where's your source of water in the event there's a fire at your house? And so communities now, if you will, charge fire protection. And so even properties that aren't connected water and sewer, but are within 600 feet of a fire hydrant, get a bill quarterly.
Yeah, I think that's not really a chart of accounts question. That's more of a correct procedure billing, isn't it?
Yes, but to Ann's point, are water and sewer giving away things and not being reimbursed?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
totally.
time.
Totally.
And so if the rec department, the public works department, City Hall are not being billed for water and sewer services,
They should be.
yes, they are no different than a single family residential being built and connecting.
Yeah.
It's just their use, they may have a big pipe connection for City Hall, but it doesn't flow a lot because there's 5 bathrooms and it's not occupied 24/7. Other services, water and sewer can typically charge for if there is a distinct and separate sprinkler line going to a commercial building, that they charge simply to have water available for the sprinklers, and that there's a fee for that. So,
For
yeah.
example, the rec department now has a mister. How is that water being accounted for? If you look at Prouty Beach, the people who are renting space there pay a fee. A percentage of that fee belongs to water and sewer. But then there's the building down there where the showers are that everybody uses. Everybody showers there because why not? It's quote free. But how is that accounted for? It isn't. There is no separate billing for that. There's probably no way even of accounting for that at this point.
Well, we're installing meters. And so I am presuming that everywhere that there's a connection, there shall be a meter.
I wouldn't assume that.
Well, that's the whole intent, is to know how much you're producing and how much you're billing and to come up with how much loss you have.
That's true, except that's true for houses and businesses. I would bet that is not true for places like Prouty Beach, that there will be 1 meter, but that doesn't break it down in any way.
And it doesn't have to. The rec department uses water and the rec department has an expense for water. Where it goes after it gets beyond the meter, as long as it's measured, I don't care where it goes.
Does Gardner Park have a meter?
What?
Does Gardner Park have a meter?
I don't know. I mean, these are good questions to ask. But I'm not the one that can answer that, though they asked me to make some executive decisions on billing. You know, the evaluation, and I did this in Bellas Falls as well. I sat down with the water and sewer department and I looked at the as-built maps. And we went connection by connection to identify, is there a connection at this location? The as-built did not have everybody on it. I said, so how long is this? You know, they got connected, and do we have them in the billing system? And the answer was no. And I said, well, how long have they been connected? So that concept can be played out the same way in the city. And as you go down through and need to improve, for example, the 6-inch line that goes down to the high school, by fire regulations, the school's not covered for fire. There's no way the 6-inch line's going to handle the sprinkler system and a truck pumping off it for the school to be covered. And so that line literally needs to be changed out. And if you're changing them, you don't do anything less than 12 inches now.
Right.
Well, that's a concept. Now, if I'm going to charge you for fire, I got to know that I have fire flow capacity where you are. And I think they know they don't have it. So all of that interrelates to how do you account for stuff and who's paying for stuff and getting it done. And then, as you can tell, I've got a little experience in all of that too.
And I'll just add for Carter and Carrie, this is definitely a takeaway as a member of the council and as our new account administrator person with the city. It is definitely a conversation that needs to be had as we move forward, because we just can't put meters on residential housing and commercial buildings without also metering the city properties that need to be that need to be remedied. So,
and they may already be. I can't tell you that they are or they are not, because I never asked. I know there's one rate out there that is for free water.
Yep. No, noted. And I think that these questions are also very topical for the Water and Sewer Task Force this evening. So maybe we will have answers within 24 hours about these things.
How do these questions get transmitted to the Water and Sewer Task Force?
Oh, my loyal residents that attend every meeting. I thought you would be.
Except but then you put those quote loyal residents in the position.
No, I can send an email, Pam. You're good.
was like, I can also ask my husband. Like, there's
Yeah.
so many lines that we
Yeah.
are all.
I just got my meter this morning. That's why I was late.
Oh, smooth install, I guess.
It came with 1,200 gallons already measured on it, so hopefully I won't have a whopper of a bill when I get it. They took a picture of it.
Yeah, but how long is 1,200 gallons? 3 days, 2 days?
I don't know. I pay enough taxes. Why do I want to pay more?
It's a ratepayer, not a tax. It's a user fee.
Was that a new connection, Susie?
Yes.
So
Well, I
you-
mean, I don't know. It's a meter.
You just got a meter on your house?
Just got my meter this morning at 7:15.
Yeah, you
At
won't.
7:15.
see a
And
change
you've
in-
used 1,200 gallons?
It came loaded with 1,200. It was already reading 1,200 when they installed it.
That's a starting point.
So
Okay,
they said, this
so-
is weird. Every other one we've installed says 0. So they took a picture of it.
Yes, yes. They're reusing an existing meter that was temporarily used somewhere else.
Yep. They
That's,
figured they would
that's
check
okay.
it. Okay.
So what I would tell you, if you know where that meter is, read it today, and for the next 7 days, at the 7:15 in the morning, go read the meter.
Okay.
Mathematically see what you are using daily,
Okay.
because you may or may not be aware of a second floor toilet leak that runs. And if that little dial in the center is spinning constantly and you know there's no water supposed to be moving, you have a problem, find it now.
Okay. Thank you.
And not that we want to get into it, but your bill might not likely change until next quarter, not for this quarter. So anyway, that's a whole other discussion.
Going back to the nuances of how complex billing for water and sewer is and how the specific adjustments. Great example. While we don't have too much time to discuss the audit, I just want to clarify, did everybody get a copy? I thought that we did, but then I was looking through my email. Okay. And then is it the one, Chip, that says, even though it says final draft in the file name, it says draft on every single page? And is
That's
that
not the
standard
final.
or?
No,
That's not
that's not the
the
final.
Damn it.
It-
Okay, I don't know if I have been sending around the right one then. Can you resend it to me? I guess it's just buried in my inbox somewhere.
When
And
was
that
the
makes
audit
sense.
sent to us? I don't recall getting it.
Yeah, okay.
I was, there's a lot to unpack in that. It's 62 pages
Mhm.
of printing. So if that'd be something that, if we have a more current version, if we can get a printout of those, that, because it's kind of hard to, it was laborious trying to go through it on this computer.
Yeah.
Not that going through it on paper is going to be any less laborious.
Rick,
It needs to get turned in.
how Rick responded to your email this morning.
I saw that.
Anyone who wants a hard copy, let him know, and we can
Yeah,
get.
that's what I was going to say is I was kind of asking Kari to, once we have that final one or whatever the most recent version, Chip, if
Yep, I'm
When you
about
send
to
that out.
send it. As I
yeah,
look
that's when we
around.
want Kari to print out. There was one big thing that I did have a question about on that, and there's more things, but there's one big item that I saw as a big number that I had a question about. The pension liabilities.
Yeah.
Which is to the tune of a couple $1 million.
Yep,
I'm assuming those are completely unfunded.
yes, they are required by GASB standards to recognize the future liabilities for retirement as part of the Vermont Municipal Retirement System, which is statewide, and there's a portion projected to be a city obligation in the future.
Yep.
And that it is really not cash. It's not ever going to come to fruition because the program is supposed to be self-funding. But according to the group that sets up new GASB rules, in order, in my opinion, to keep CPA firms doing something, they add those, I don't know, 20 pages to the audit every year So once you get to the pension liability note, which may be note number 11 or 12, go to note number 13 and continue, because none of that crap matters.
I have a question, in comparing the new audit to the previous audit. There was a page in the previous audit, last page, that talked about findings. And
Yes.
it said last year, not for the 2025 one, for the 2024 one, it said that there had to be multiple changes made, a significant number of journal entries corrected, et cetera, et cetera. And it explained, why this might have occurred. And it suggested that we had to have policies updated, staff turnover, et cetera. And I don't see anything like those findings in the new audit. And I was wondering, why isn't there a page of findings?
So the quick answer is findings are required to be presented in the audit when you have to have a single audit. Last year, because you spent over $750,000 of federal money, you had to have a single audit, and so findings are listed in it. And without that, I'm going to send you what is called the SAS 115 letter, because that is the equivalency of a politer way of saying the findings. And I'm sending you the 114 letter that says, we went through an extremely friendly audit. Nobody was contradicting with us. And so, I have Pam's address. Do I have Ann's?
Pam's good enough. She can forward it to me.
Okay.
In my role as secretary or something.
I thought you were a videographer.
Well, I am, I have this multitasking career path, apparently. Amazing.
I wonder, Chip, because we're running out of time now, and I know they're going to present next week, did you happen to see anything glaring or that you disagreed with, or did you find it pretty good?
Yeah, one of the communications I had, their first adjustment for 25 was to put the educational payments back in as property tax revenue and as a transfer to school, which are both not part of the city's budget. And I said, I don't agree that we should be putting those numbers back in, because then the budget to actual is totally skewed, because 3/4 of our actual expense budget is more than covered by paying the school. And auditors always work in aggregate numbers with no pennies. And I know we didn't pay exactly the dollars that they did their adjusting entry for. So further, it's like, when you look at the audit, you don't see pennies anywhere. But when you look at the actuals, hey, there are pennies. Pennies matter. So I argued with it, and the answer I got back was, that's the way we've been doing it for 30 years. We've been auditing for 30 years, and that's the way we do it. And I was like, well, good, then that's just what we're going to do. So we did the entry, and when you look at the budget to actual for property taxes, it looks like you raised a shitload more in taxes than you needed to. Well, that's because down at the bottom, transfer to the school, there is no budget, but there's that amount of money that went to the school.
Mhm.
So this year already in our tax billing, we have moved intentionally the amount of preliminary cash flow due to the schools out of revenue and put it on the liability list. And we'll do the same thing again this year and years to come. That number shifts to understand for educational billing. In May, a grand list value is used to set the statewide property tax rates. Sometimes the grand list has already gone through the grievance process in a community, and other times it has not. Often, the homestead declarations, which also determine which tax rate a property or part of a property would be charged, the homestead rate or the non-residential rate, is impacted. And so someone can declare their homestead long after the property tax bill goes out. And so that alters what will happen to be due to adjust a bill to then how much the city has to pay. And the state payment adjustments continue on all the way through December 31st. And so long about March of 26, we will get what is called the final cash flow for education. And it will be a number different than the preliminary cash flow. And so we then have to compensate again the revenue due to school. We pay the school shortly after each installment. So we have been paying biannually. We will be paying quarterly if we change the collection process. And the methodology that I use is whatever percentage. If it's quarterly, we're going to pay 25% of the number to the school quarterly. But once we get that final cash flow, the last payment, if we do it right, ends up being that we get to keep more money than we had booked off to the liability. Because more times than not, people declare their homestead after they got their bill, and it reduces their bill to declare their homestead. Mm-hmm. So that I had quite the conversation with them about, as well. When I said, how is it that since 2018, the state tax adjustment was not caught as being incorrectly budgeted? But we never noticed. That's where it ended. Okay. So I'm not going to argue with you about that. You didn't even notice it. And if you look at the MD&A and the reasons that we came up short, I literally listed that part of that was a budget problem with tax anticipation and an unbudgeted interest on debt service is part of the reason that we ran short. But overall, we did end up with a positive fund balance of like $86,000, in which we started, and we were going to be $1.5 million in deficit. So, massive actions have been taken and will continue to be.
Okay, respecting folks' time. We all now have great copies of audit. Please pick it up next Wednesday, 8 a.m. KBS will be in this meeting giving us a walkthrough. So now that everyone has the final copy of the audit, please take some time. In between now and then, I'm meeting with Betty Caldwell to see her impressions and have her insights. She's unable to attend that Wednesday meeting, so I'm just going to do a check-in with her. And then on the following Monday, so again, next Wednesday, the 29th, meeting with KBS. They're also presenting to the council on the 3rd on Monday, and I'm hoping Betty can attend that, but we'll see. But anyways, I also encourage if y'all would like to come to that meeting and to talk about and give background on whatever you guys would like to. Public meeting, please join me. And then besides that, I just kind of don't want to have abrupt ending to this. But oh wait, Gary's back. Wow, quick drop off.
Convenient location.
Great. You're on it for winter tires. Anyways, so yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Please reach out if you have any questions. Thank you, Tip, for all your work. Walking through the department heads as well as Carrie. Yeah, this is part of the big informed choices that we need to take to go in the correct direction. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanks everybody else for, sitting in these, holding me accountable. Appreciate it.
Sorry that I missed
I am going to follow up with Stacy with those questions about water sewer billing.
Go ahead.
It is
I
worth
might let
diving
you
into.
follow up first then, Chip, before I
Yeah.
email the task force.
Yeah, because the task force, they're working with data that's been provided to them,
Yeah.
and they may not even have on the radar that in that data, there's people that get zero bills.
Yeah. Okay. I'll wait to hear from you, Chip, after you talk to Stacy, and then if need be, I'll email water and sewer.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm not sure that this group received like the final version of the audit. I'm not sure that much
I just sent them.
changed.
I just sent
Okay.
them all.
And Carrie, can you print
Perfect.
a couple of those out?
Yeah.
we
Who
need
wants
to-
one?
Definitely me, because I
Okay.
go cross-eyed.
I'll take a
trying to do
physical.
it online.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 copies.
We need one. We need one.
3, 4.
All right, fine. I need to waste
Okay.
paper, but
We share.
Got a paper budget.
We have
I
a
mean,
city,
there
yeah,
are more
we have a
trees
city
than
forest. We'll make up for it.
Yeah, we actually
Okay.
do.
I will print 5 copies of the audit, and I'll have them all here. So feel free to come by anytime. I'll be here.
Thank you.
thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
Thanks, you
Thanks, Todd.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Everybody have a good day.
You
See
too.
y'all.
You too.
Bye.